Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and it's been quite a week in the world of video games. Not necessarily a good week for everyone, but certainly an eventful one. We got Diablo news spanning 3 separate titles, including Diablo 1. We're going to talk as well about the Season 9 reveal for Diablo 4, the reveal of Path of Exile 1's next expansion, which is huge hype, the unexpectedly large patch coming to PoE 2 as well, but then we'll also talk about the catastrophe happening at Bungie, the legal trouble that Epic got itself into with Fortnite this week, why people are review bombing all the Borderlands games suddenly, and the Elden Ring movie that's in the works. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new videos go live. But before we go on, a quick word from this video's sponsor. Game of Thrones Kingsroad is a brand new action-adventure RPG built in Unreal Engine 5, and it's an official game set in the world of Westeros, during the events of Season 4 of the TV show. It's got a brand new story that expands on both the show and the books. You play as the heir to House Tyre. It's a lesser-known northern house, and you're going to navigate alliances, betrayals, and full-on war. You'll explore iconic locations like Castle Black, King's Landing, and Highgarden, and you'll meet characters like Jon Snow, Cersei Lannister, and Samwell Tarly along the way. The game has a real-time, skill-based combat system. You're going to be dodging and countering enemy attacks. There's 3 classes to pick from: Knight, Sellsword, and Assassin. Each one plays completely differently. They got their own weapons, skills, and combat style. There's even a co-op monster hunting mode where you can team up with friends to take on ice spiders, ironbeak griffins, and other horrors of the realm. You can play on PC or mobile, and progress carries over between platforms, so whether you're grinding on your phone or at your desk, it's all the same journey. If you're into action-adventure RPGs, or you just want an excuse to dive back into the world of Game of Thrones, click the link below, download Game of Thrones Kingsroad for free, and forge your legend anytime, anywhere. Alright, starting with some Diablo news, let's kick things off with a blast from the past. After nearly 2 years in development, maybe 3, the Hell 3 mod for Diablo 1 is officially complete. This is the 3rd entry in the Hell series, and this isn't just a nostalgia trip, this is a full HD overhaul of D1 with deeper character customization, more difficulty modes, just a boatload of new content. It's got expanded multiplayer, PvP support, a pile of cosmetic and gameplay options. Basically, it's Diablo 1 on steroids. Definitely worth checking out for Diablo 1 fans. And since we're talking about the past, well, Season 35 of Diablo 3 will be launching on Friday, June 6th. The season theme is the Pandemonium buff. I don't know if you folks remember that. Those of you who've been watching for a while or Diablo fans for a long time, basically it's the snowballing kill streak bonus that stacks movement speed and damage as you mow through enemies, triggers all these flashy environmental effects the longer your streak goes. This wasn't one of the fan favorite season themes, but it did shake things up. Meanwhile, over in Diablo 4, the community is pretty torn between lingering complaints about Season 8 and the Season 9 campfire chat from this week. Seems there isn't a ton of hype for the test server next week. Now, I encourage you folks to check out my campfire chat recap video going over the season theme reveal and what to expect from Season 9. I did misspeak in that video. I said that the test server starts on May 7th, and since we don't have time machines, some of you correctly guessed that I meant May 27th, not 7th. So yes, next Tuesday, and it's going to run for 1 week. Now, outside of all that, I've seen some disappointment that no changes are coming to masterworking or tempering, disappointment that in the Season of Nightmare Dungeons, we're not getting the quality of life update to have Nightmare Dungeon sigils clearly indicate which are currently active whispers, or otherwise just an overhaul to the system, like remove Nightmare Dungeon keys altogether, make all dungeons in Torment Nightmare Dungeons automatically, just cycle which ones are whispers. I've seen disappointment that no concrete plans for changing the reliquary were expressed. You know, something as simple as bringing back the 700 platinum and the free cosmetic skin set would do wonders. I've seen disappointment that we're once again getting seasonal borrowed powers. Now, we already knew that was going to happen if you checked out the roadmap. Again, got a full video covering that roadmap. And just as a heads up, it's going to happen again in Season 10, Borrowed Powers again. We know this, it's on the roadmap, so let's not do a surprise Pikachu face when it happens. Now, I do think that these Herodric spells are the most mechanically interesting of the seasonal powers we've seen. You get to, like, I think you have 4 different ways of customizing the power. But the super similar interface to the Season 8 powers, complete with a near identical placement of different nodes, just gives a very same old initial impression. Now, Season 9 does seem like a good fix for nightmare dungeons. Instant teleporting from one nightmare dungeon to another, for instance, that's a great quality of life. You don't have to exit a dungeon first and then teleport. The escalating nightmares, where you chain nightmare dungeons and they get harder with more affixes, not just more damage, plus ending with a new boss fight. This sounds like a great way to expand and improve on what I feel was one of the weaker features in the game. Hopefully this will make them as fun as Infernal Hordes, maybe even more. And while the new powers seem like the best so far, I can agree that it will be good to shake things up with a different way of lending power for a season, right? You know, Diablo 3 had borrowed power seasons. Some people are just opposed to borrowed power entirely, but if they're going to stick with borrowed power, Diablo 3 really varied how they would deliver that power season to season. I never thought I would be referring to Diablo 3 seasons as an example of something, but you know, ways to do it. You can move the borrowed power onto items. You can move it onto crafting, like new crafting options. You can move it onto like a Kanai's cube or something. Meanwhile, I think what the game really needs more than anything is more endgame in the form of meta progression. I'm currently working on a video with a mock-up of what I mean by this and how it can be implemented into Diablo 4. I'm aiming to publish that video next week, so stay tuned for that. There's a general feeling that the game doesn't have enough content for even a shorter season like Season 8. And I think meta progression would help alleviate this feeling and allow players to feel like they can keep playing. They have a drive and a reason to keep going. But beyond that, Season 9 will also address overpower being so overpowered. All the best builds of Season 8 use overpower currently, and it makes sense. All the best builds used to use crit and vulnerable, then those were nerfed. I think it was like a year ago, more? I forget exactly. Many seasons ago. Those were nerfed, so we've moved on to the next thing that wasn't nerfed. And to anyone upset at the extent of the overpower nerf, which is currently stated to be, I think, an 80% reduction in power to overpowered, this is what we have the test server for. Blizzard tends to, moving into the test server, swing big. And they can always dial things back if they feel that it was over-nerfed. So we'll test things out. We'll give our feedback. If overpower builds are now dead, we'll say that, and hopefully Blizzard will adjust. Season 9 will also up rune drop rates. Lots of people complaining about them being too rare this season. This is actually the first time I crafted any mythic item via the blacksmith's random gambling mechanic. I always would use the deterministic rune crafting, but I just couldn't get the runes this time, so I just slammed a couple useless mythics at the blacksmith, and you know. As for Season 8, I will say it is weird that they still haven't fixed the bugs with the Infernal Hordes user interface. It fails to properly update the wave count, sometimes the ether count. It seems like sometimes it works, like they released a patch last week or 2 weeks ago. I thought it fixed it, turned out it didn't fix it. And on the topic of Infernal Hordes, since we know that Season 10 will be all about Infernal Hordes, I guess we can start giving our feedback now for what we hope for, and what we hope will get addressed, and that would be, you know, maybe the non-Hellborn options can get some juice. Too many times does it feel like if you don't get a Hellborn option, it's just disappointment. You know, elites can be good as well. But those spires, man, those spires, killing me. And we'll end the Diablo section of this video on what I think is a funny note. Here's footage of YouTuber Goblin Sorix completing a pit level 65 with no skills at all on his skill bar. Nothing. Look at that. It's a pure pet build. He uses the Naguse rune word to summon wolves because he has pets out, so it's a self-feeding cycle of summoning wolves. He uses the Back-Kui rune word to summon the Earthen Bulwark to protect himself by just moving around. He uses the Spirit Bond aspect so that his companions can't die. Check out his full video, folks. He links the build in his comments section, and I just thought this was pretty funny. It's quite an achievement to do a 65 with no skills on your bar. But how are you folks feeling about Diablo 4 Season 9? What's your ideal feature for a Diablo season? Time and again, I just see people say, oh, you know, this isn't enough, or this isn't what I want. So what do you want? What would make you happy in a Diablo season? Sound off in the comments, upvote comments that give good ideas that you want to see? What is your dream mechanic, your dream change that's going to make you happy and excited for a Diablo 4 season? Sound off in the comments, folks. Meanwhile, in Path of Exile news, everyone is hyped for the upcoming 3.26 expansion. We got another journal teaser this week with red rose petals hinting at Zana, and a journal entry, possibly, kinda, maybe, hinting at the old Synthesis League. It said, quote, "Threads, impressions, realities woven from memory, and yet not quite right. Each one feels designed but distorted. Is this how the originator hides their work? Or is it coming undone? Whatever the reason, I won't stop now, not when I'm this close." We got the reveal teaser video as well. The expansion is called Secrets of the Atlas, and we'll get the full reveal on June 5th at 1 p.m. Pacific, with the expansion itself launching on June 13th. This is the first Atlas expansion in like 3 years, so the hype is real, and maybe a year's wait since the last Path of Exile 1 League. Maybe this 1 year wait will be worth it. Meanwhile, in Path of Exile 2, the devs shared plans for patch 0.2.1, which is shaping up to be unexpectedly beefy. First up, a big quality of life change. Affix tier displays are being reverted to match PoE 1 style. That means Tier 1 is going to be the best now, no matter what the item is. You don't have to cross-reference a list to determine whether your Tier 8 affix is the best, or if there's actually a Tier 9 or higher. One big focus of the patch will be increasing the variety of endgame maps so that you don't get Hidden Grotto a third of the time. They're planning to normalize map frequency. They're also boosting drop rates for the game's rarest uniques and introducing a bunch of new chase uniques. Also, for crafting, expect 22 new runes, 14 soul cores, and 7 talismans. They're also planning to make rarer omens from rituals more common. Corrupted essences will be 6 times more likely when using Vol orbs on essence monsters, and rogue exiles are getting 3 times the unique drop item rate. Oh, and volatile plants? Nerfed. Thank goodness. So, between the PoE 1 expansion teasers and the PoE 2 patch info, June's looking great for PoE fans. But what about you? What's your wildest theory about the 3.26 expansion? Drop it in the comments and we'll see who actually nails it. Now onto some marathon news. Yes, it's time to check in on Bungie, and no, things are not looking good. If you'll remember last week, we spoke about the rampant art theft that Bungie acknowledged. That turned into a whole debacle. Well, since then, former Bungie devs have been speaking up, either on social media or in interviews with journalists, and it's all painting a grim portrait of the company. Not even about the art theft. One former Bungie dev who worked on both Destiny 2 and Marathon has come forward, describing the leadership on the Marathon project as extremely toxic and humiliating. In a now deleted Blue Sky post, the dev said, quote, "Every day was a fight for autonomy and trust. Every day was someone telling me I'm not allowed to speak on any issue or problem in a professional tone. Every day was someone telling me my industry experience didn't matter and that some failed CEO knows best as our sub-area lead. Morale inside the studio is reportedly in freefall, as per Forbes' Paul Tassi. He said that the vibes have never been worse. Across departments, staff are worried about what happens if Marathon flops. The company had originally planned to open pre-orders this summer, but those plans were scrapped. Now they're looking at a roadmap of public playtests instead of the full open beta that was supposed to hit in August. All of this turmoil is following a pretty rough closed alpha period. Players dropped off pretty quickly on Steam, and feedback was lukewarm at best, and many noted that the game desperately needs a strong PvE component, something devs allegedly had been saying for years to upper management, only to be ignored. According to IGN, Bungie leadership is pushing hard to get Marathon shipped, because in summer 2026, the final payouts from Sony's acquisition will take effect. And according to internal sources, there's a growing expectation that a bunch of execs are just going to dip the moment that money clears. So they want to ensure that Marathon gets released long enough before then to earn them whatever bonuses are possible. And it gets worse. Back in the day, the devs reportedly rejected a proposed Destiny 2 subscription model from upper management. They just stopped that from happening because they knew it was a terrible idea. And Bungie leadership was allegedly also concerned that players earning glowing armor and PvP through, gameplay as opposed to through the wallet, they were afraid that would cut into their MTX sales. Priorities, right? Bungie is, it's had problems forever, right? They make great games, but they've always had problems. And Microsoft was blamed when they were under Microsoft. And Activision was blamed when they were under Activision. Now they're under Sony, and it's the same story. If everywhere you go, you smell crap, you gotta check under your shoe. In Bungie's case, I see a team of talented devs. Upper management seems to be the issue. Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. Maybe it's time for them to clean house, keep the talent, change the execs. But what do you folks think? Is there a world where Marathon turns this around and finds success? Or are we watching a train wreck about to happen? Let me know what you think in the comments. Then in some Doom news, Doom the Dark Ages has officially ripped and torn its way into the record books. This is now the biggest launch for id Software in its 34-year history. The game hit 3 million players 7 times faster than Doom Eternal did. Now, a lot of that success can be attributed to Game Pass. When you are just paying a Game Pass subscription and then you can play this game for free, yeah, a lot of people are going to play your game. These don't necessarily translate into sales. Most Game Pass users aren't going to then buy the game. And Bethesda did not give sales figures. If you look on Steam, the game's peak concurrent player count was only 31,000, which looks grim, so the 3 million figure points to either a lot of console players and or a lot of people playing the game for free on Game Pass rather than on Steam. Thankfully for id, since Bethesda is owned by Microsoft, any sales lost to Game Pass shouldn't matter too much, because Microsoft just wants to pad up their Game Pass numbers. If the game sells poorly because of Game Pass, it's not like Microsoft is going to shut them down. Microsoft's still happy. On OpenCritic, the game's sitting pretty with an 86 critic average score. 95% of critics are recommending the game, and it even has a 90 out of 100 player rating. Even on Steam, with its low numbers, it has an 86% positive review count. So, yeah, it's doing just fine critically. But there's more to the story. In terms of gameplay, impressions are a bit mixed. It's a very different game from the previous 2 Dooms. Now that said, for players who aren't fond of the pace of the game, do be sure to check out all the robust difficulty customization options, because you can crank the speed up to 120%. You can lower projectile velocity, you can raise projectile damage, you can fine-tune the game to hit that signature Doom Eternal intensity if that's what you want. One bit of feedback that you really can't get around though, no Mick Gordon soundtrack. That one's a real bummer. Now, I can see why not everyone would prefer Doom the Dark Ages over one of the previous 2 Dooms. It is certainly the weirdest of the Doom games in forever. But still, good on id for taking a chance. But how are you folks feeling? Do you think the Dark Ages is a triumph, or is it a misstep, or something else? Sound off in the comments. Then in some Fortnite news, Epic Games is in hot water again. This time, it's about Darth Vader's voice. You see, Epic basically added an AI-voiced Darth Vader into Fortnite. You could talk to it, and an AI chatbot would reply to you in the voice of Darth Vader, responding dynamically to what you said. It was hilarious. The devs had put in safeguards so that the very mature player base of Fortnite wouldn't have Darth Vader saying horrible, terrible, unspeakable things, but you should never underestimate the internet's ability to troll. Because yes, they found their way around the safeguards, and there's clips floating around the internet of Fortnite Darth Vader saying some pretty awful but hilarious things. And while Epic then took down Darth Vader, that's not even the real reason they're in trouble. SAG-AFTRA, the union representing over 160,000 actors and voice performers, has filed an unfair labor practice charge against Epic Games and Llama Productions. The charge? Using AI to voice Darth Vader in Fortnite without notifying the union. Now, obviously, no human voice actor could do the work that was being done here. It was an AI that would interpret and dynamically reply to whatever a player says. It just doesn't matter how many voice lines you record, no human could possibly do that. And the estate of James Earl Jones and the late actor himself, they're also fine and had signed off on AI use of his voice. The trouble here is that SAG-AFTRA has a clause that requires Epic and its partners to notify SAG-AFTRA before using any AI voice work so that they can determine that this work would not be depriving a human voice actor of a job. But Epic didn't clear it with them first. They just went ahead and rolled out this project, thus violating the agreement. All Epic had to do was run it by them first, show them, they'd given the okay, and then all this mess would have been avoided. Oh well. Now, on some Borderlands news. Oof. Okay. The entire Borderlands franchise has been getting hit with negative reviews on Steam, all due to recent changes in the end user license agreement. Some players are furious over language that seems to grant kernel-level access to their computers. Even though Borderlands is like mostly a single-player or, co-op game, people see no reason to have any kind of stringent anti-cheat or anything, which is what they commonly associate kernel-level access with. So people are asking, why? Why are you doing this? Why do you need that kind of power over our computers? It's not like we're playing a competitive multiplayer game that needs to avoid cheaters at all costs or the game dies. Some users have gone so far as accusing Gearbox and 2K of using anti-cheat as a Trojan horse to collect personal data, names, passwords, phone numbers, your social security number, what diseases you're susceptible to, who knows. But here's where it gets messy. Others are saying people are overreacting. According to them, the updated EULA isn't really that different from the one Borderlands has had since 2018. And the anti-cheat language, apparently part of a standard boilerplate Take-Two EULA used across their entire catalog of games. This isn't even Gearbox's decision, it's the publisher Take-Two. Regardless though, people are allowed to be upset over a sudden change in the EULA. Paying customers who suddenly have this forced upon them, they did not get to agree to these terms when they first installed the game, and now it's too late for a refund. Should they be entitled to a refund? Because if not, then they're certainly entitled to leave an angry review. But the bad news for Borderlands doesn't end there. With Borderlands 4 looming on the horizon, Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford was asked, or begged really, please not make the game $80. His reply, quote, A, not my call. B, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school, working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. Oof. Talk about a tone-deaf response. That's, this one's a double whammy. First, read the room, Randy. Video game prices increasing is a hot-button issue right now, regardless of how much games cost in the past. Second, having the audacity to say that you're not a real fan if you're not willing to fork over $80? Damn. I can maybe expect this level of cockiness from like Star Wars or Pokemon, but I don't know that Borderlands still has enough diehard fans in 2025 to justify this. I think you want to sell your game to more than just fans of the series. And then in some quick Elden Ring news, Elden Ring is officially getting a film adaptation, and it's coming from the dark, moody corners of A24. Yep, that A24, the studio behind Hereditary, The Witch, Midsommar, so many of my favorite movies. Everything Everywhere All at Once as well. That's, I think, their most successful and popular movie. They're teaming up with From Software to bring The Lands Between to the big screen. And directing the project is Alex Garland, the mind behind Ex Machina and Annihilation, wonderful sci-fi films. He was also the screenwriter for 28 Days Later, Sunshine, and is currently working on 28 Years Later and its sequel, The Bone Temple. I've loved Garland's work. I think A24 has become my favorite film studio, so I have a really good feeling about this one. And yes, George R. R. Martin is back in the producer chair. Anything to not finish writing Winds of Winter. He helped shape the lore of Elden Ring, and now he'll be helping shape the film's vision. Oh, and one more quick thing here. We got an announcement trailer for Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy. It's a party-based, story-driven CRPG. Owlcat makes great CRPGs. They did Pathfinder Kingmaker, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, and Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. Their writing is especially good, so this should be a treat for 40k fans. And that's going to wrap up this video, folks, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed the great quality of life feature that the D4 devs added without even mentioning it in the patch notes. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker Raiders for more gaming content.